Well, since we're off of the kitchen cabinet and cabinetry detail, we're moving into door jambs and hanging these doors. There are 18 doors that were left here. So we're using the original jambs, so my wife's going around and doing the necessary body work on those with filler so they can get cleaned up. And I'm working on hanging these doors now, doing the mortises for the hinges. I'm kind of set up a little production room in here for me. Very simple. Just one piece of 2x4 right here with some duct tape on it. And I've created this little contraption here, very simple. So I just simply set the door on this side and I put a clamp about halfway up this 2x4 and it holds it in place so I can come in and mortise the hinges out. Alright, you can see how the little contraption works. Nothing elaborate, but holds the door nice and solid so I can do my work on it. And what this board is right here is a story stick or a storyboard. And what I've done is measured from the top of the jamb down to the existing mortises on the top of where the hinge would be in all three places and subtracted 1/8 of an inch to give myself a gap at the top of the door. So this storyboard has a hook on the top, so I can just put it on the top of the door. Here's my mark, let's say that's 7 inches. I've got another mark and then one down at the bottom. I've scribed a line right here that goes all the way around the board, so depending if the door is swinging left-handed or right-handed, I just mark on the opposite side of the stick. So I transfer my marks down to the door, and that ensures that they're all going to be the same and that I can make my layout lines in a rapid fashion. Okay, after the storyboard, everything's been marked on it here. I just simply take my square and extend my marks out. You don't have to go all the way across depending on which way you're coming in. Just enough to line up the mortising jig. And then of course an X. That's to where I don't accidentally put the jig on backwards and take the material out of the wrong side. So the X is where I take my material out. It's just a little fail safe there so I don't make any mistakes. Now if you are doing something like this that already has the lock set punched in board, you do need to verify if you're using an existing jamb that your dimension from the top of the door, including the gap down to here, is going to be correct. In my case it is, so whenever I hang the door and mortise the hinges, it ensures that this is going to go on the striker hole dead center. So that's just a bit of information there to make sure you cross-reference across here to make sure your layouts are going to be right, or you may end up with a problem here. Okay, with everything lined up, and I'm using a laminate trimmer here, that's what this little guard is for, is to help guide it and hold this plate. I've found with the shape of my base plate, if I hold it square to the work like this, it's going to bump over in this area. So a simple remedy to that is just hold it like so when you're making your cut. This little area here is where you start your bit. And I always just take the majority of this material out first and then come around and do my final pass around here to clean it up. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to try to keep my hand out of the way, but I do need to have to hold the router. Here we go. Alright, well once you get everything done, I like using these Vicks bits here. It centers the hole into the hinge and you've got a pilot right there when you push the drill down. I'm only going to do one here just for speed. Switch out to your driver. And it puts it perfectly in the center. And run it home. Well, alright, all the doors are now been hung, all the hardware has been installed, test fit, make sure everything works fine. These two are brand new jambs I built, and they work just like they're supposed to. On some of the older doors, They kind of were sagging off on one side or the other, so the lock set wasn't lining up, so I had to readjust the jambs on some of those, as well as replace some of the jam stop. So everything's looking good right now. I really like these arch top doors like that. They're going to look really nice. And we're getting ready to spec out and get our material list together for all the trim. Well, alright, we've picked up all of our molding. It's been in here acclimating for a couple of days. It's now ready to start being installed where we can install it. We picked up this 5 5/8 finger jointed pine crown molding. These are 8-foot long pieces, $3 each. So enough material to do the living room, the hallway, and the kitchen. That's all only places we're going to install crown. $60. Cannot beat that. I am going to scarf and glue these two together, or two of them, to make 16-foot pieces. So it'll be a little easier to install instead of wrestling with that many joints around the ceiling. We picked up all of our case molding here, 3 1/4 inches wide. These are 16-foot long pieces, $5.60 each. And this is about a 4.5 ornate base that we're going to be going with throughout the entire house. Enough to do that, $5.60 a piece as well. So right at $500 to trim out the entire house for materials. All right, well, here's a sneak peek. Got all the door casings on where I can install them. Places like the bathrooms, you know, they'll get painted out first, tiled, and then the trim will be pre-painted, installed after the fact, and then fill the nail holes and touch it up. Same scenario where there's going to be wood flooring. The floor needs to go down first, and then it will be installed and touched up beyond that. It's starting to look like a home again. Each thing we do now just makes it that much better because we are on the downhill slope. No more demolition, no more preparing. So we're kind of moving into finishes at this point, which is very exciting and long overdue in my opinion. And in rooms where there's carpet, we're just holding the baseboard up 1/4 inch and go ahead and installing that. That will allow the installers to come in and tuck underneath it and give them the space they need to make a clean job. So the bedrooms are being trimmed out in terms of the base. This one's complete, as well as the closet, and I have another one finished as well. Well, I am coping all the inside corners in the house, regardless that this is going to be painted out. Most people would just cut them at 45 and then fill any imperfections with caulk and then paint it out, and that's fine. Or if you wanted to get a true nice tight fitting miter joint, you would need to come in with a protractor and divide things out and set your saw up accordingly, because these corners are never at 90 degrees. They're always on one side or the other. So to do a cope joint's very simple. You just measure inside corner to inside corner, cut one of them straight, cut this one at a 45 like you're going to do the miter, and then back cut along that line following your profile. It's very quick and very easy to lay out rooms, and there's a lot less chance for error, and there's less things to fix. Now this one is an ornate profile, and it does take me a little bit of time to cope that out, but it does make for a very, very nice joint. Well, even though I'm coping the inside corners, I do still have to miter the outside corners. And like I'd noted before, you're not going to find any corners that are true 90 degrees. You can take your chances and cut this at 45 in hopes that it's going to line up, but it never will perfectly. In this type of a scenario, I came in with a protractor, figured the true angle of this, divided it out, set up the saw accordingly, made some test cuts, test fits, adjusted anything that I needed to, and then cut it out of the actual material that goes down. Most people would not do this when it's going to get painted out, just come in and do caulk, but I find this very good practice. So if you are going to do stain grade or something like that, the more practice you do, the more effective you're going to be and the less chance of error you're going to have. This is just a quick shot of one of the other bedrooms that's been trimmed out, including the closet, just to give you an idea on what it's going to look like. Each time you see it, it will look better and better.